Hey, Microvellum University is back in session. I got another video for you. This one will cover how you can modify the detail of a bead molding used on your face frame cabinets, and how you can add a brand new bead molding to your database. I'm going to get into the weeds a little bit on this one, so follow along and learn how to own your data in Microvellum Toolbox. For this video, I'm going to be working on just the face frame only product, so I'll go ahead and isolate it. And then I'll uncheck the select entire product again so I can highlight some of the parts on the frame. Okay, now into the prompts so I can change the face frame option and add the beaded profile. The profile type doesn't really matter right now because I'm just showing you where in Toolbox you can find the settings for the profiles that are used when you have one of these frame options on. So that's what the product looks like when we have that beaded profile turned on. And now going into Workbook Designer for those settings. Inside the G Workbook, select that Lookup Table tab, and now scroll all the way down to the bottom. Here are the two tables for the bead profiles. These are defined ranges. Now within these ranges are the different parameters Toolbox uses to know how the frames should be drawn and manufactured. One range is for the separate and haunched bead, and the other one is for the single panel frame. This setting here is for haunch frames only. It will change the distance from the inside edge of the bead to the end of the rail. I'm going to change it to 1 inch. Now, after redrawing it, this is what changing that bead thickness will do. Using DI to check the distance, there's the 1 inch value for the bead thickness. Okay, now for the main purpose of this video, and that's showing you how to set up a new profile. To do that, I'll need to start in Workbook Designer and add that new profile name or names to the lookup table. You can start just typing in the new name or copy and paste and go back and make edits. This new profile I'm going to call FFB375OG. Since I know I already have an OG tool and profile drawing in Toolbox, I'm going to plan on that being the profile, so this will be real easy. After saving the changes in the designer, then into the factory data, I'll need to make sure the profile drawing matches the name I just set in the lookup table. Here's the OG drawing I mentioned that was already in the database, so I just need to make a copy and rename it. I already have one that's existing, but I also need to have one called separate. So I'll rename it to that. And then before closing out of this drawing file, I'm going to need to rotate and mirror this object. And this is because of the way Toolbox references the drawing when adding it to the Microvellum product. Now, I only know this because I opened up some of the other drawings in the factory data and saw the differences and how it affected the product. When this drawing changes or the file is missing from the folder, it affects the Microvellum product. It's a good idea to use what's already in Toolbox whenever you can, especially when it comes to customizing your library or engineering products. Now on to the last step before trying to change the bead profile, and that's adding the material to the project. So I'll open up the material file and add a new material. Now it's important again to name it the same way it is in the lookup table. Make sure to give it a thickness. And if you're processing this for production and want the costing reports to be accurate, you would also add the markup, waste factor, and labor value here. Now going back into the prompts page, and over to the face options, I now have this new bead profile in my list. And there you can see it's drawing based off of the DWG file in the factory data. Now that little detail there is because of the bead thickness. So all I need to do is change that in Workbook Designer. Go back in there, find the lookup table, and of course next to the bead profile name that I'm using, changing the bead thickness. There we go. That looks a lot better. Okay, and if I change it to a separate bead, it will use the other drawing in the profiles folder that was called separate. And because this beaded molding is now a cut part that can be processed for production, it had to have that material in the material file. Next up, the last part of this video, making edits to the profile when the frame will be cut out as one single panel and adding a new profile for single panel frames. That's what that second lookup table was for. First, I'm going to set the product to a single panel with a radius profile. If I want to adjust this profile, I'll need to go back to the lookup table where we have those settings. Notice here the bead tool. For single panels, this is what controls the profile detail. By changing the depth or setting an offset, we'll give the frame a different profile. And now if I want to have a new profile completely, I first need to make sure to use a tool that's already existing in the tool file. The edge detail that I'm going to get on the frame will be coming in from the drawing of that router bit. I'm going to go ahead and use an OG edge again, and it's going to be looking to this tool here. Make note of the common tool name because that's what needs to be the name inside of the lookup table. And before leaving and going back to the drawing, here's where you can find the drawings of the different router bits inside of the tool file. Just like the profile drawings, changes made to these drawings will also affect the routed edge on the product. Okay, so now I know what tool I want to use and its common name. It's back to Workbook Designer and adding the new profile to the lookup table. Just like before, I'm just going to copy this information and paste it below. Now with a new name, this will be the name that you see in the drop-down list, so it can be whatever you want. Then the tool name that matches the common name from that tool file. And then I'll go ahead and just delete this other stuff here since I don't want an offset route. Okay, and last thing I'll do is set a new depth to get the full detail of the OG edge. Save and close that. Back to the drawing. Open up the prompts again, and there's the new profile option in the list. And now I got a frame with an interior OG edge. I'll be able to get it out of a single panel or add it to one of the standard frame options. There's more videos on the face frame library, so check those out to keep learning how you can use those in your projects and the different ways they can be modified so they work for you and your company.